Hi guys, thank you very much for joining me once again this week on another episode of Love Code on YouTube. I want to thank you for always joining me every week. If this is your first time, thank you again. You're welcome. Please subscribe to the channel. That's the surest way to make sure that you don't miss anything going forward. This week, I want to talk about 12 signs that you are neglecting your spouse. These are just little clues that can show you that things are not the way they're supposed to be, and you need to pay more attention to your partner, as it were. And the first one that I have here is if your spouse ever starts to tell you, "I miss you," that is a bad sign. Okay, so it's good if they say they love you, but if your spouse starts to say, "I miss you," or this is not how we used to be, it's a bad sign. It shows that you have started to neglect your spouse, and you want to pay attention to that. I'll try to be as fast as I can, as quick as I can with this. You can always stop it and watch again if you missed anything. So the next one here is, if your spouse becomes extra touchy or extra clingy, then you know that they are missing something. If your spouse starts to trail you around, and that's not the way they were before, and they always want to hang on to you, means that internally they may be feeling like you're far away from them, as it were. So you want to try to bridge that gap. Or if on the other hand they are giving you some extra distance that they didn't used to do before, and this is just being watchful and to see signs, clues, that things are different from the way they used to be. And this is another sign that you may have unknowingly started to neglect your spouse. All right. The third one is if your spouse begins to avoid you. All right. They're not wanting to do things with you anymore. Maybe you guys used to do things together before. You hang out a lot together, or there are things you used to do in the house together all the time, and all of a sudden your spouse starts to avoid doing those things with you. It may just be a clue telling you that you are probably neglecting them, and they don't feel as close as they used to feel with you before. So that means that there might be something wrong, and you might need to try to bridge that gap and step in there. All right. The next one is when they start to get angry over little things, when little things that did not used to upset them before, and that's very important. When it's uncharacteristic, it's not how this person behaves normally. When they start to get upset over little things, you want to pay attention. It means that there's something else that is probably as is an issue that has been bottled up that you haven't yet addressed, that they need addressed, but they probably don't want to talk about. They don't want to say it, that this is what is causing the issue. So you want to look at that when they start to get angry over little things. It's usually when we get upset over little things, it's not because those little things are the real issue. It's other things that happened that are not as important as those little things that now make those little things look serious, look more serious than they actually are. Okay. The next one is when your spouse starts to become jealous of your time with other people. When your spouse starts to show signs of being upset that you're hanging out with other people, and this doesn't happen normally. Okay, everything we're saying here are things that just start to show up all of a sudden. All right, or they're spending more time on the phone with other people and you're upset. Right, they're talking on the phone all the time and you're upset about that. Right. Or if it's the other way around, where they are now jealous of you spending time with other people on the phone, it probably shows that they don't think you are spending enough time with them, and that's very important. All right, because sometimes we say, the way we think that things are not the way our spouse is interpreting it. So it's the way they feel about it, is how they are perceiving what is going on, is that you are spending more time with other people than you are with them. So that's very, very important, and you want to pay attention to that. The next one is when your spouse doesn't want any sex or intimacy anymore, right? When they start to avoid you in bed, when they start to stay away, and they start to, when, one excuse or the other is one thing or the other. It's usually, especially with women, it's usually not that, they don't want that. It's just that they feel like there's something more important that needs to be trashed out before you bring up that subject. And if you don't address that, then, it becomes like a stumbling block or an hindrance. Okay, so when they start to avoid intimacy with you, you start to go weeks and months without any intimacy in your marriage. You want to sit down and have a conversation, and don't just excuse it away. Say, okay, well, we're busy. It's just because. There's nothing like just because. All right, intimacy is an important part of marriage. It's something that God put there for a particular reason, to keep you guys together and to keep everything as exciting as possible. So when you go weeks and months like that without it, there's something going on the inside, and you want to be able to address that. Okay, the next one is when they begin to criticize or nag you a lot. When your wife doesn't criticize you before, your husband doesn't criticize you on a normal day, right, in this way, and all of a sudden everything you do is wrong, right? Like, what kind of shirt is that you're even wearing? Can't you find another shirt? Or what kind of lipstick is this? Don't, please, don't do. Is this how people wear lipstick? When your spouse starts to respond like that, it's not the lipstick, okay? There's something else going on. It's a show of an internal conflict, something that you've done or something that you're being perceived to have done, right? That is upsetting them. So you want to pay attention to that and have a conversation later on about it and say, okay, babe, what is really the problem, right? Is there something that I've done? Are you upset about something? Is there an expectation that you have of me that I'm not meeting? Or and you'll see that it's usually that they feel neglected. Your spouse feels like there's a lot of distance between you, because normally it's very difficult to criticize something that you're close to. When we keep our distance from something, it's easier to criticize from a distance. So when you want to criticize your spouse, it's usually in a constructive way. But when you feel distance from them, you can nag them, you can criticize them, you can, that's why people get to the point of insult and all these things. They've allowed a lot of distance and a lot of gap there. So you want to be mindful of that. The next one is when they start to need constant affirmation. And don't forget, we're saying when this is not the case before. When your spouse starts to say something like, "Do you love me?" then you know that the status is shaky. When they start to ask you those kind of questions, like, "Do you really love me?" or "Do you still love me? Are you sure you love me?" It means that they don't feel love. They're not saying you don't. Okay, and this is where people get upset and start saying, "Why can she be asking me, do you still love me?" They're not saying you don't love them. They just want a reassurance of it because they don't feel it. At that time, at that moment, they are telling you that the reality is, "I don't feel this love. I know you love me, it's there, but I can't feel it." So that's why they're asking you that. So you need to double up, okay, and put some work into it to make sure that you let them understand that I do love you. It might not appear as like that, and start to do things that will show them that you really and truly still do love them, right? When they start to spend more time than normal on their devices, that's another one. More time than usual. When your spouse starts to pay more attention to their devices, their phone, their iPad, or whatever it is, they always want to stay away and just lock up somewhere, watch something online, and they don't want to talk to you, they don't want to be around you, and all of that. Then it's a sign that they are responding to neglect. They are responding to the fact that you're not giving them as much time, and they also want to do this, especially when they don't behave this way before. If from the beginning of your marriage, your spouse has always, isolated themselves on their phone or whatever, then it's no big deal. It's probably the way they are, but that's how you've gotten used to that. But if it suddenly starts to show up, then you know that it's probably a sign that they feel like they're not getting enough of you. All right? The next one is when your spouse doesn't want to talk to you about anything beyond the basics, beyond the kids. What are the kids going to eat? What are they going to wear? School, work, basic things. When they are not talking to you beyond the surface anymore, they are not opening up about deeper issues. They're not telling you things that they are planning. When they want to do something in 2 weeks and they're only telling you the day before, then you know that something is wrong. And it's not to get defensive and to fight and to confront, but to understand that maybe I'm not doing enough to let this person be as close to me as they need to be able to express themselves to me. All right, so that is extremely important. Take note of it. The next one is when they stop to ask you for help around the house or with personal things, especially with women. If they have asked you over and over again, "Help me with this, help me with that," and you keep ignoring it, you keep neglecting it, you keep doing what you would rather do, after a while, the hope deferred make the heart sick. So they will stop asking you. So when you get to that point where they don't even ask you to help them anymore, and they found a way around it, it means you have neglected to the point where the person now feels like, what, I can do without this guy. I can do, and you don't want that in your marriage. You don't want to get to that point. You need to try to build that bridge back, and to start to help them, or with personal things, work related things. Say, okay, babe, help me edit this thing, or help me, write this proposal, or help me check this thing that I've written, whether it's good enough. They don't ask you for that. They don't even, tell you and discuss anything with you that is beyond, just the normal surface level. Then you know that something is wrong there. Last but not the least, right? When your spouse becomes less tender and affectionate, they have a new look, extra efforts. You make extra effort, or you have, you cut your hair, or you do something, extra, and they couldn't care less, right? They're not even looking at you. They're not affectionate in any way. There's no tenderness. Something is wrong there. You have to look at that. Or whether it is with you or with someone else. When any new extra effort that you are making doesn't seem to count anymore to them, right? Then there's something wrong there, and the other way around as well. So you have to be careful to always do your best, and this is something that goes for every single one of us. Every time I study to make these videos, and I'm writing out all of these things, I'm relearning certain things myself, and I'm telling myself the things that I need to pay attention to in my own marriage as well. And this really helps me a lot too, where I'm constantly thinking about these things and saying, okay, I don't want to be a victim of this very thing. So we need to pay attention, pay more attention to our spouses. Some of us, are putting effort in, we're doing our best, but we need to put in more effort, and just to make sure that our spouses feel loved, they feel respected, they feel like we're still interested in them. They're still the center of our attraction, as it were. Okay, so I hope with these 3 points of mine, I've been able to convince you and not to confuse you. You need to, spend more time and just pay more attention to your spouse so that they don't feel neglected in any way. All right, thank you very much for watching the video this week. Like the video if you do, subscribe to the channel, and make sure you turn on your notifications so that you know when I have a new video out. I usually have new videos out on Sundays at 6 p.m. Atlantic Standard Time. I have a new video out every week at that time. Until I see you again next week, thank you very much, and God bless you.